Dr. Alex Pattakos is a change maker, a teacher, and a transformational thinker. He had the privilege of spending time with one of his heroes, psychiatrist Dr. Viktor Frankl, the Nazi prison camp survivor who had the horrendous opportunity to study firsthand the meaning of his life and man's search for meaning. A few in-depth discussions later, Dr. Frankl inspired Dr. Pattakos to write a book based on Frankl's principles. It's called Prisoners of Our Thoughts. Dr. Alex Pattakos is the founder of the Center for Meaning and sometimes called Dr. Meaning. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Alex Pattakos to Studio 4 to tell us more. Doctor, that's a lot of doctors.
Doctor, it's pleasure to be here.
Hey, nice to meet you, and you're a PhD doctor.
A PhD doctor, correct.
Mm-hmm. And the nickname, Dr. Meaning, who gave you that?
Well, that's a nickname that was given me probably when I started speaking about this whole topic when the book first came out, and people just started recognizing that I was almost on this meaning ministry, if you will. So the name stuck; it became an affectionate nickname. So
we don't call it the Church of Meaning; we just call it the Center.
The Center.
Yes,
correct.
What stops us
Yes.
from searching for meaning in our life, for finding meaning in our life? What stops us?
Yes. Well, I think that, the first thing is that all of us need to look at the search for meaning as something that's healthy. That's not a sign of sickness. It's not a sign that we should try to avoid that search. And I think that one of the things that I write about is that the search for meaning, particularly in the 21st century, has become a megatrend. I mean, it's really more and more important for people as they go through the economic challenges and so forth. What stops us typically is either we become lazy, we become complacent, or we like to be a victim. I mean, there are many of us that kind of look at others as being the cause of their despair.
Right. And we know to take control.
That's right.
We have to blame ourselves or be accountable, at least.
Be accountable.
So what if you're just never really lost, but you never quite know where you're going? Or you're living with all this wealth and glory, and you're unhappy, you can't find a reason why, something terrible happens to you, it just ruins your day. What's that about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that's important to distinguish is the fact that to me anyway, and the work that I do, that there's a difference between having meaning and having a purpose. Not all of us are really conscious of what our life's purpose is, but it doesn't mean that every day there's not meaning. There's meaning in every moment of our lives. There's a seed of meaning for us to discover. And so part of this whole challenge is when something negative happens to us, and this is one of the key principles of Viktor Frankl and what I try to espouse in Prisoners of Our Thoughts, is that we have the ultimate freedom to choose our attitude. And we need that to kind of get us going, to basically become unstuck so that we can start to look for creative solutions, try to uncover what are some of the things that maybe we can learn from and grow from that particular experience.
Sure. It's existentialism in the sense it's freedom of choice, it's personal responsibility. What looks like an end point can also be a beginning.
Absolutely.
Viktor Frankl.
Yes.
How did you meet him? When did it all begin?
Well, the beginning probably started when I was in high school. Like so many millions of people, I read Man's Search for Meaning, which is one of 32 books that Dr. Frankl had written. And I entered the mental health field early on in my life, and I was always fascinated with human behavior. And then I ended up moving into politics and got even more into abnormal behavior as I got into that field.
You noticed.
And then it was really about early 1990, late 80s. When I started to communicate initially by letter and then by email to Dr. Frankl and his family, with whom I'm still stay in touch. And so that process of communicating with him really followed years of always being immersed in his philosophy, because I was always, I wasn't a Freudian or a neo-Freudian. There were a lot of other schools of thought, Adlerian and so forth, and and his approach always resonated with me. So when I started to communicate with him, and I had the opportunity to meet him, that became kind of almost a passion for bringing his work to the mainstream.
And this is a man, if people don't know who he is or was, in Auschwitz, lost his parents, his pregnant wife, his brother, and somehow managed.
Correct.
To endure these horrendous circumstances and emerge a deep thinker and not an angry man.
Yeah. I think what's interesting, what a lot of people don't know about Viktor Frankl, is that his approach to the search for meaning as being an intrinsic motivator was something that he had really studied and had written about when he was a teenager. And so man's search for meaning actually came later. But he had already, it was almost as if he went to Auschwitz and went to the camps to field test his theories, his ideas.
Sure, a little bit prepared.
Right.
If
Exactly.
anything can prepare you for that. But within the camps, sometimes there was humor.
That's right.
And sometimes there was joy. At a very different level, but it was there.
That's right.
What happened with the prisoners who could grasp that?
Yeah. Well, this was a key thing for Viktor Frankl's work too, because in his experience, he's tried to inspire other people. He was obviously a medical doctor, he was a psychiatrist, and he was really trying to help others. He did have opportunities to escape the camps. He chose not to do that. Yeah. And so his notion is that if he could get people to rise above the suffering, and that's part of what the sense of humor, that's part of what this notion of detaching yourself from yourself is all about. That enables you to free yourself. Again, get out of that inner mental prison. Doesn't mean everybody's going to survive, but it gives you a higher probability of success. And I think that was a major.
And an enchantment with life.
Exactly.
At whatever level. I don't know how you get there. I've never been in a prisoner of war camp, but I know people who have in Vietnam. And I know who survived and who didn't.
Right. That's right.
Of my friends.
That's right. Suffering occurs across an entire life continuum. So it doesn't necessarily mean, like you talked earlier about breast cancer, you talk about people with other kinds of incurable diseases. People go through tragic events. So you don't have to go to a concentration camp in order to experience the kind of meaning moments that Viktor Frankl had experienced.
But a bad experience or a bad scenario is a good excuse for a break. I think you said that. It's a way to move ahead.
That's right.
To gain perspective. How do you get there?
Yeah. Well,
like, what are the principles of all of this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first principle, as I said, is probably the one that Viktor Frankl is most known for, and that is the ability for us to choose our attitude, no matter what the circumstances. And there's exercises that I try to describe, and you can apply in your life, including your work life, because that's part of the reason I'm here in Vancouver, is to keynote a conference, an international conference on meaning. But part of it is be able to understand that once we can kind of get ourselves in that space where we're no longer stuck, then we can start looking at some of the other principles to find the deeper meaning and grow from it.
Well, and as humans, we have the ability to do that.
Absolutely.
To reflect of other animals I don't think do. I don't think my dog does that.
That's right. Yeah.
You have that dog, Bouvier. He probably does.
Yeah, he does a lot. Well, because he has me to coach him.
Of course. But there is a Dao Bouvier. He is a Bouvier.
He is a Bouvier, yes.
And I love Bouviers. They're the big, great, grand creatures.
That's right.
But you get something from that dog every day that helps you go through.
That's right. He's my personal coach for exercise as well as he's my mentor.
But you exercise the freedom to choose your attitude, and we all do.
That's right.
How is that related to, say, a labyrinth?
Well, the whole notion of life itself, and of course part of this thing is that, as you know, I have a Greek heritage. That's my background. And I know you had a Greek guest just yesterday here, so I'm great to have two Greeks on your show this week. But the idea of the labyrinth for me was always fascinating because I was always intrigued by Greek mythology and Theseus and the Minotaur and so forth. And the labyrinth represents a lot about our lives. You know, we have turns. Sometimes we don't know, what's on the other side of the curve. And so we have to be willing to be adventurous enough to go through this labyrinth and to experience life to its fullest. And if you walk a labyrinth, you go in and you come out refreshed. You come out maybe with some new insights and so forth. And that's part of what we're trying to do.
Sure, but it's not Pollyanna thinking. It's not that.
No, absolutely not. That's right.
It's the best way to realize your dreams, and I think you say it in Prisoners of Our Thoughts, is to wake up.
That's right. Yeah.
Number one. And it's not about positive thinking. It's not that either. It's about something deeper.
That's right.
Isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, looking at life through rosy-colored glasses, is not what I'm trying to espouse here. I mean, the idea behind being a true optimist is to be able to take action, to be able to visualize what your life could look like.
Sure.
If you're not, I talk about non-creative visualization, people who can only visualize themselves visualizing. They really don't know what the heck they want to do. And if you could at least visualize a state where you're happy, where you feel healthy, where you feel loved and cared for, where you care about others, then it's more likely, again, to get you out of that inner mental prison to help you move along life's path.
And at work, Tom's toothpaste. I use Tom's toothpaste. He's from Maine, right?
Right. Tom's from Maine, right.
He's an example you use in a working situation. Here's a guy.
That's right.
Who goes to the wall in his life and in his work.
That's right.
How so?
Well, I think he learned as he and his wife developed his business that he became very successful. I mean, he had the profits in the traditional sense of a great business entrepreneur, but he felt that something was missing. And that's usually what happens. When people ask me, they say, Alex, what does, meaning mean? And a lot of us really can't describe what's meaning to us, but we can describe what is meaningless. And all of a sudden, he started to say, I'm bored, I feel empty, and so forth. And that's why he decided to shift gears. He ended up going to the Harvard Divinity School to learn more about theology and philosophy. And then he came back and kind of redesigned his company around principles that were much more geared to community, the environment, making a positive difference in the world.
And stay true to those principles.
And stay true to those principles, which is a key factor.
And you don't have to have a hotshot job. There was one executive write about in Prisoners of Our Thoughts, big honking job, I think fired, not sure, dismissed, and wound up working in a golf pro shop or something like that. Happy.
Happy, exactly.
Finally happy.
Absolutely.
Dealing with all those executives stressed out of their minds.
That's right.
Who are hitting the links.
That's right. And I think the economic crisis that we've been experiencing, not just in Canada and the U.S. and Europe and the Eurozone and so forth, is really kind of shaking and awakening people so that they're really looking at what really matters. I mean, I lost my job, but I really didn't like my job in the first place.
Right.
Now I'm doing something that I really love.
Or I hate my job and I stayed there.
And I stayed there. And then all of a sudden at the end of, X years, you look at it and go, where did time go? What do I do now? Is that all there is?
Right. So what is the essence of Viktor Frankl's work on this? How does he inspire you every day? How can I use Viktor Frankl's principles so that I can not work against myself, figure out the meaning of my life?
Right. Well, obviously, it's a very simple question with a really simple answer. Practice, 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 right? Because, the idea is that you've got to maintain that positive attitude. I know my wife, for example, will complain to me sometimes by saying, can't I just have a bad day? Because I'm trying to say, well, yeah, but let's not go down too far and for too long. And it's a practice kind of a situation because we have to be held personally responsible for whether or not we can discover the seeds of meaning in our work life, in our personal life, in our relationships, and so forth. And so part of this is practice the principles, reread Man's Search for Meaning, reread my book, practice with the exercises, and so forth. It's not easy, but that's part of walking the labyrinth of life.
Well, it's the deeper meaning of freedom.
That's right.
Truly. Your uncle, was it Stelios?
Yes.
Uncle Stelios?
Stylianos.
Pattakos.
Yes.
He was in jail for treason in Greece.
Yes.
And he somehow, did he, figure out that survival depends on finding meaning, no matter what the circumstance.
That's right. That's right.
I sound like a preacher, but...
No, it's good. This is very good. This is what I mean about the meaning ministry, is helping inspire other people to do that. Yes, my uncle Stelios, who's the last living member of the Greek junta, which had caused many Greek Canadians to leave Greece and come here and to the States and so forth. Putting his politics aside, it was the whole way of how did he survive his imprisonment and how did he deal with his connections with his family. I happen to be close to my great uncle, and so the notion is, and he's 99 years old today, and he's still living, his life, in spite of the fact that there are some people who didn't like his politics.
Yeah, exactly. And someone said, who was it? The meaning of it all is there is no meaning.
Yes, yeah, yeah, that was in a movie.
Was it?
Yeah.
Or don't take yourself too seriously because no one else does.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we could just get there, Christopher Reeve, you mentioned him, of course, and his wife,
Dana,
broke his back, not his spirit.
That's right. That's right.
How to get there is the trick.
Yeah, and the question is, we need to be inspired by people like that. Not that we want to live those kinds of lives, because we don't know if we end up becoming quadriplegic, will we be able to have a Christopher Reeve kind of an attitude about life, or a Dana Reeve type of life? Hopefully we can. But the question is that if we can at least look to those kinds of role models and be inspired by them, that gives us hope.
Sure, like life is a mission.
Life is a mission, exactly. And it's not just a series of tasks, because if we only look at it as a series of tasks,
it's not a career.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a mission.
It's a mission. It's part of who you are. But again, a key element of Viktor Frankl's work is that life doesn't just happen to us. All right, we happen to life. We bring to life what we want, in spite of the circumstances that we maybe not can control.
Sure. And at your darkest hour,
that's right,
you can find some light.
That's right.
Over and over and over again, because it happens almost every day.
That's right.
Not the darkest hour, but the ups and the downs. It's life.
It is life.
Socrates' great insight is if you ask great questions, examine the life.
And Socrates said, an unexamined life is not worth living.
Not worth living.
Okay.
Great work you do.
Well, thank you so much. It's great work with you.